I used to think the best way to grow an e-commerce business was chasing the next product, the next trend, the next little spike of revenue. But somewhere along the way, I realized I was building a business that controlled me instead of a business that supported my life. So I shifted. I chose subscriptions, not for the model, but for the stability, the peace, the space to breathe. This is the real reason I stepped into recurring revenue and why it changed everything. All right, so the real reason that I decided to get a subscription first brand, it's pretty simple. I just seen so many brands that I worked with when I was in agency time, how good their CAC to 30-day lifetime gross profit was. And for those of you watching this that aren't as familiar with what that means, by the way, I'm putting here coffee, current tea, and then past tea. Because right now what we end up doing is the fulfillment team, which is basically my boys and I, we end up saying like, oh, like which one is this? Which one is that? And it's like so easy to just make these little tiny systems and changes to the business and put things that are past at down below instead of at eye level. So it's past. This one actually goes here. Current coffee. It's gonna go up here, and then the blender we'll put down at the very bottom, and then we'll label this as chamomile sleepy tea. And I think I was listening to a YouTube video today, just about YouTube, very meta, but a YouTube video that was saying if you aim to get better, 1% better in every single video that you create, that is really the goal. It is not to make the first video the ultimate best video you've ever made, but instead we have coffee, current tea, past tea, and now it's gonna be super simple for the team to just come in, look and go, all right, where's the current one? It's up to me now to say, all right, current tea needs to stay, or current coffee needs to stay up there. Current tea goes here, and then we'll put overstock tea and coffee on those other ones, and I'll move these books over to there. So overstock tea, and then overstock coffee. Overstock coffee, and that way we don't ever forget what goes where, and it just works like a system. But the real reason that we decided to get the brand because it was a subscription brand was just because I had seen how much better the cash flow was than one-time brands. It's still difficult to operate a subscription brand, but when you don't have that recurring revenue, the amount of not even energy you have to put into it in the day-to-day, but the mental energy you have to spend thinking about the fact of you have to drive more revenue. I coach people these days that they really stress about that. Hey, I need to drive the revenue, and like not knowing where your next dollar is coming from and not being able to predict that and then forecast the inventory that you buy against that, like that's a real like friction point and sticking point that people don't consider when they're running businesses. And it's hard enough to run a business, but to have a business that does not have subscription, I would not do it. Truly, I do not feel like I want to run that business. And that's why I've really focused in on helping people focus more on adding subscription to their business and having that a part of like the whole process, because without it, it's just a business I don't see myself thriving in. I don't see founders thriving in unless you have like a creator-led business. It's very difficult to pull that off because your acquisition costs are all predicated on what the platform is charging at the time, which is Meta or Google or whatever you're using. So I'm gonna put sleepy tea. So the sleepy tea ones will be down here, but I'd be curious to know what you all think. Like, do you think that that's a reality that you would even be able to live in with your brand? Could you have subscription? Is that even a possibility? I personally think that every brand in some way or another can have subscription. I was just talking to a journal brand, and I was telling them I think there's a way that they can incorporate like a digital subscription. I'm trying to figure out how I do that even with this brand. Like, how do we incorporate this? If this brand is focused around travel and books, how do we incorporate a version of like things that those people would be interested in that is digital? I think it could be audio. Actually, when I actually was before I acquired the brand, I had talked to the owners of the brand, and I told them, I remember telling them like, hey, you should incorporate like a digital product. And that's something that I'm going to be exploring more, because I think having that element of digital where the margins are pretty much 99% is going to be very, very interesting. I'm going to put this as extra stuff. So I'm thinking more like for people who love reading and travel, I'm thinking more things that are like itineraries for when you go to these places, like almost like an insider pass to that destination. I thought about it before of doing curating Vimeo content, but I'm like, I don't really feel great about that. But ultimately, the reason I decided to acquire a subscription brand, to get back to the original topic, is because of the CAC to lifetime gross profit ratio. Now, that is basically taking what does it cost to get the customer, and then what do you get when you deliver the product or service. So what do you get paid for that? Say it's $100. And then what is left over after cost of delivery, which is made up of two things. Number one is your cost of goods sold. Number two is going to be your shipping and fulfillment. So let's say your cost of goods sold on that product that's $100 to charge to the customer is $25 to make that product, and then $10 to fulfill that product with shipping and everything like that. And so that's $35. And then let's say your CAC is $15. So that's about $50. So if you charge them $100 and then you had $50 across CAC, and which is the cost to acquire that customer on ads. So you spent $50 and that's what you paid in a cost per result to get them for the purchase. Then you add that to, you basically look at saying, all right, overall with the CAC and cost of delivery, it's $50, and the product you charge us $100 on that first order, you have gross profited $50. So looking at that, that's where I say, okay, can we get to a place where on that first order, we're able to be profitable or break even? And what is the lifetime of that customer? So if for us, we know people, as I looked at the analytics, people stay an average of 3 quarters with us. Then I know if it's $50 per quarter that they, on the first one, that the gross profit is $50. Then I know on the next one, because the CAC is only $15, so I'll pull that down off of the CAC or off of the cost of delivery, and I'll know, okay, well, $35 is typically what the cost of delivery is on the next one, and we're charging them another $100. So I know now it's $70. So the first one is $50 is gross profit. The next one is 70 or 75, and then it's 75 for the next one. So when I look at CAC to lifetime gross profit, I really want to see that as 3 or higher. Now, I saw in these subscription companies, it was insane. I can't name the specifics of each of the brands, but it was insane how much those brands would profit. And I just said, like, when I acquire a company, because I came up with this vision of, like, as I was working at this agency, I was saying, I really want to buy, grow, and sell e-commerce brands. I was like, I am absolutely doing it with a subscription brand. And so that is ultimately why I decided to say, let's acquire a subscription brand. And when the chance came up to acquire the Wordy Traveler, I was like, I am all in and I will figure it out. And ultimately, I just told my wife, I was like, I want to acquire it for the person who I will become after. And I told buddies about this too. And I said, I think like by owning this brand, I will become somebody who I will say, now I can work with brand owners, or I can, like, I just love working with the owner themselves. Like, that's why I started coaching as well, is like, I just love getting to help and encourage people. And I truly always believe like every product has something special about it, and every person has something special about them. So ultimately, that's why we acquired the subscription brand. And I'm excited to see what this makes of me and the people that I get to work with working on this brand. But now I have to go ahead and get to painting, because we're going to be painting this room here, this wall, which is my office area. We're going to be painting this wall right here. And I'm going to start by just basically painting like from here over to here and then over to here. And then we're going to place 2 light bars here and here, so that when you're in front of the desk, it has the 2 bars behind. And yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get into that here in a second. And I'll continue telling you more about like subscription stuff and like why we did that, and what I'm, really thinking about when it comes to acquiring more brands that are in the subscription space, and like how we plan to treat a lot of those brands and coaching those founders, because I think there's just such a special thing about working with subscription brand owners, and they have just such a leverage point that they don't even realize, I think, in the beginning. So I'm really excited to get into that. By the way, I just learned today that flat and matte paint is like the same. I was asking the guy at Home Depot, I was asking him like, what's the difference between matte and flat? And he was like, it's actually the same if you get Glidden, until you get, there's like a certain brand name, I think it was Dynasty, it's like level paint. And I was like, oh man, I did not know that. And yeah, so we got the full roller here, and we're gonna go ahead and use this. And this one shouldn't take too long. Like, I've painted some walls in my life that have taken a long time, but this one should be pretty quick. I'm gonna go ahead and have dinner real quick, and then I will be right back to finish painting this. I'm gonna go have dinner with my son. We're gonna paint. I'll paint this and then let it dry, let it air out before we're gonna do like some like Madden, PGA slash what other game are we gonna play? Madden, PGA, and FIFA tournament. We're doing this like, I guess we're calling it like a decathlon, like an EA Sports decathlon. And it's my 15-year-old, and we're basically gonna play all the games. So we played NHL and NBA last night, and today we have Madden and PGA, and then we're gonna end with FIFA, because we're both not as experienced in FIFA. So I won in, or he won in NHL, I won in NBA, and we'll see who takes it tonight. All right, so here's where I'm going to be taping off real quick around these little areas, like on the edges and everything, just to make this a little bit faster. But I'll continue to kind of tell you guys about why we ultimately purchased a subscription company instead of just a Shopify store, any Shopify store. Ultimately, the cash flow of the business is what we're all after when we buy a brand, ultimately. Whether we know it or not, buying a subscription brand is a huge hack in cash flow, because of that predictability. Like, most people don't know this, but most Shopify stores end up going out of business because of cash flow, and because they maybe grow too fast, or ultimately end up just not being able to achieve the numbers that maybe they achieved in 2020 or other years, and then they have to take big investments, and then they just dilute their profits even further, like any of the profits that they can get out of the business. And it's just this like death spiral that I've seen happen in a lot of e-commerce brands. And yeah, I'm just doing my best to kind of spread the word, work with different people who also believe the same things, because there's many ways to grow a brand. I'm ultimately after growing it in a way that allows you to work to live and more of like a lifestyle brand versus it being like, hey, hopefully we have this massive exit one day. It's like, how about we live the moments of life that are beautiful now and get to work with people we love and do things we love and work with a great team. Like that's ultimately what I'm after. Some people may be more after making more money. Ultimately, I've seen now, like with my kids getting older and all that stuff, like, hey, I would rather have time with them now than going and working and saying, okay, well, then we can have better trips later and all that stuff. It's like, no, let's build that foundation with them. Let's build relationships with the people we love now and do things we love with people we enjoy working with on the business side. So that's my personal philosophy about it. It's not the right or wrong way, but ultimately that's like that also fed into the acquisition of getting the subscription brand. Now, I will say when I acquired it, I didn't have a realistic expectation of what it would actually be like to grow the brand. And by the way, what you see me doing now is just taping this off. I'm working on this area here in my office because I want to have like a backdrop that it can basically act as a place for me to shoot content and just literally pop on the camera. I'm gonna have two light bars coming up and be able to just make a video, create trainings, and usually I end up blending in with this wall. It feels very flat, and I'll keep it simple, but ultimately I want it to feel like a little more interesting than just being a flat white wall. I think there's a lot of like subtle things that happen in branding when you see somebody talking and there's some intention and thought and care that goes into it beyond just them in front of a white wall. Because any of us have that. We all know what a white wall means. It means, yeah, I didn't do anything here. It just you get what you get. And I think as much as we don't want to have fluff and have that in our content. But I do think that that shows a level of care and detail that attracts other people who care about that stuff and say, hey, that's actually a great touch. Like, that's a really great touch that you put on there. And it looks nice. And you're the type of people that I like working with. So that's ultimately why I'm like, yeah, I think it makes sense to add this. And as far as taping goes, by the way, I've watched YouTube videos that say you shouldn't tape. I decided today to go ahead and tape anyways. And we'll go ahead and do the top edge naturally. And we have a big old roller here that we're going to use to get this thing done. So let's go. All right. So now that we got our big brush here, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and just edge this corner. Let's lay down that first line of paint. We'll just kind of do the edges around it, but this is not a painting video. This is a video on just why we are leaning into acquiring subscription-focused brands and working with subscription-focused brands. And if we're coaching a brand, why we're so heavy on like saying, here's why we think subscription is the way. I mentioned previously that like the CAC to lifetime gross profit is an important piece of what I look at. And ultimately, it just like a lot of people try to win the game with better marketing when really you can win the game with a better model. Like that is truly in my mind what I think winning the game looks like is having such a good model that you can ultimately predict your success to some level. Like what I end up looking at in these businesses is, all right, what is subscription? What does the subscription cadence look like for this next month? How many people do we have renewing? What does churn look like? Why are they churning? What is the biggest impact of that? how can we reduce that? Like one thing we're looking at right now is saying, all right, how can we literally take a create a flow for people who are existing members, and I'm talking with my head of operations about this right now, but how do we take a flow and build around the fact that people have friends who are also likely readers? Like if you're a reader, you likely have friends who are also readers. And how do we get them to be able to gift this holiday season to them for free? Because that would actually be probably a cheaper CAC than, not probably, it would be a cheaper CAC than us having people or us having to, acquire net new people. But if we give the people who are already subscribed such a good offer that they can give their friends and family members, it just makes sense. So we're putting together an offer right now that would allow them to do that and building out the infrastructure for them to make that possible. So that'll go live this week. And when we have a subscription business and you're like, hey, somebody is subscribed, like they're so bought in that they paid to subscribe for this thing, like that's a powerful mechanism. And I think a lot of people underrate or don't understand like just how powerful subscription can be. So ultimately, that's why I'm really bullish on it. I'm really big on it. I'm like, hey, if you don't have subscription in your business, you should. If it's a Shopify store, like I don't see why any brand wouldn't to some level. Even if it's a digital subscription, like you can literally have a shoe brand and offer digital perks or an annual membership like Bandit Running does. I think I mentioned in the previous masterclass I did. It's like Bandit Running literally offers a subscription and they're a shoe brand. Like it's not that hard to just add something that makes sense for your people onto the existing offer that is already there, and makes sense for them. But I just think so many brands don't do it because there's just not, like they think I'm not a subscription brand or I'm too luxury for that or whatever the excuses might be. But I think ultimately it's a missed opportunity. And if you're watching this and you have a Shopify store doing, over 15K like a month, adding that, it just makes sense. There's not really a downside to adding it. Usually, a lot of times I see brands have one-time customer problems where 90 or 70 to 90% of people buy once and never come back. And the way to see this is actually if you go in Klaviyo, you can actually see this because if you look in, if you go to create a segment, say how many people bought one time and never bought again, you will absolutely see like probably 70 to 90% of people. If you just do purchase one time and then exclude people who, or look at all contacts, your all contacts list, and then look at people who bought one time, and you'll be able to see what the percentage is of people, all purchasers ever, people who bought one time. Oh, sorry, people who then bought two times. Sorry, I'm just focusing on the painting. I'm not thinking as much about what I'm telling you all. But people who bought one time and then people who bought two times, and you look at the difference between that, and that'll tell you, where you're actually at in terms of that ratio. So I think it's just really important to note, like, never be too proud for a subscription. Like it's absolutely a game changer if you're able to add it to your business. And like I said, there's very few brands that can't. But having that predictable revenue is just such a lifeline, especially when you're in those beginning phases in running a business. Like I've heard a lot of people talk about starting with wholesale instead, because then you have the cash flow of some of those major POs. But like, and at the end of the day, business is hard, right? There's downsides to every business model. So my encouragement to you is focus on how you could add subscription and go ahead and do an exercise. Spend an hour or two like focused on that instead of trying to scale your ad account or do something different in the email marketing or any of that stuff right now. Like, focus on the business model, see how you can improve that, because ultimately that's, like I said, where some of the biggest gains come from. Just having a nice sound model that works. When specifically it boils down to that CAC to lifetime gross profit, like I shared with you a second ago. Like, that's ultimately where what you're gonna look for. So I'd love to know kind of where your head's at when it comes to subscription right now these days. What you think of, like, first when you think of subscription, and like what that word just even means to you. And anybody who believes like, yeah, I truly could not add subscription to my business, let me know in the comments below. But I'll see you all in future videos. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for hanging with me. I am pumped to be able to have this office continue to improve and look better and better. So I'll see you all in the next video, the next Breaking a Million episode. This episode here is more dedicated to me kind of breaking down for you all and showing you, like, here's what I'm doing in my day in life and why I believe in subscription and all that stuff. But we have a lot of things in the works for the Wordy Traveler. We are working on organic social going way up. Like, we just talked this morning, me and my head of creative, about how we're going to improve that ultimately, like what we're going to be doing. And it's going to be a lot around making content around reading and travel. It'll be leveraging some AI as well in that. I think there's a lot to be done there. We're going to basically, instead of focusing on making ads and working more with creators, we're going to put that energy into working on creating educational, engaging content that attracts our ideal people. And I think more brands are going to have to do that as well. Where you say, okay, like, if our people love reading and travel, I should be creating content every single day around, hey, here's the 5 things that will inspire you to travel to Switzerland, or 5 facts you didn't know about Switzerland books, or books on Switzerland, or here, or basically I boiled it down to, there's places, Switzerland places and Switzerland books. And so we have a list of, like, all the places we're going basically through the whole next year now, that we've acquired the brand. And we said, hey, why don't we build these little, like, 1 to 2 minute clips around all of those places so that people can get inspired. And if somebody's inspired about going to those places, then that's the person we want to take on the journey with us through the Wordy Traveler. Like, just makes sense, you know? So that's really what we're focused on right now when it comes to the Wordy Traveler. And breaking a million there looks like us having better content, us having better ads, or content that then ultimately leads to better ads. And I talked with Christine, who kind of runs our creative here, and she's on board. She's going to help out with making a lot of those assets. And I think she's going to do great. We're using Artlist to source a lot of the assets that we'll be using. And it's just so amazing what you can do with AI these days. Like, it really is. If you're not leveraging it in your e-com store, like, I think you're missing a huge opportunity. Like, that might even be a bigger opportunity than subscription, because just with the amount of things you're able to put out, it's wild. It is very wild. So yeah, that's essentially kind of where we're at with the business. I'll continue to improve this, wall here, and yeah, I'm excited to see what the finished product looks like. I have some lights that I have that are going to go here with like I said, the 2 beams. And I'm excited to share more as we develop, like, the AI system, and continue to put out this type of content for you all to watch the journey and come along. And my goal through all this stuff is, like, you would feel like, man, I'm living the same life as this guy, just maybe a little different, different house, different address, but you all are also building alongside of me. And I just haven't seen a lot of this content where it's super raw, like as raw as you can be. It's like somebody's building this from the ground up. And like I said, I could have just showed you like, here's all the brands we're getting case studies for and all of that. But I've been on that agency life side, and I feel like people that do that just makes you feel like, oh, I need to talk to this person who's so awesome at what they do versus me being like, hey, I'm in this with you all, and we're building this together. And you get to see how I do it. But obviously, I've spent 500 mil on the paid side, but it's like that doesn't mean nothing if I haven't built my own brand. At least that's how I feel. It does mean something, but I've always really respected people who have done it themselves and can speak from experience of like, here's exactly what it was like building that. So that's where we're at. And that pretty much wraps it. I'm just going to continue to paint the wall here and at least get the first coat down. And then from there, I'll be going upstairs. Like I said, finishing this gaming tournament with my son. It's just a one-on-one dad and me kind of gaming tournament. And then we'll continue building. So that went straight into the ground. It'll be a little reminder of make sure to hold the brush. Because ultimately we're going to pull out this carpet, so not a huge problem. But yeah, that's it for the vlog today of breaking 1 million. All right, peace.